look at me like, then what do we say? Well, that, and honestly, that was, I bet. We just thank you. But, okay, I just don't think at this stage because it's not their fault. And it would cause a major stigma. Look, I understand all of that, and I wish there was an easy solution, but there isn't. Well, but would that have changed anything? No. But it wouldn't change anything.
I just physically don't think it's fair. It's like when I do something behind my dad's back growing up and then like ask her for like forgiveness versus like permission. And I know there's nothing we can do. I know that I'm just
I understand, but if somebody else was involved and your question grass was going to affect them too, that's not. And that's my issue. There is no good solution. But if it was an only class, there's still going to be I just don't think we have a choice. I am. I absolutely am. You have every right. You have every right to do this. If there's something I can do, I'll do it. And this is one of your best qualities that you hear so deeply. No, but honestly, it's one of your best qualities. And I admire it. And you're absolutely right. There's just, I just don't know. I get it. I am. I mean, again, it sucks all the way. Well, I think that's a discussion we have to do, especially moving to the town ring, because that's a very different situation. And I don't think it's unfair for us to say, okay, you're welcome to come do this here, but you're going to have to pay X, Y, Z. Figure it out.
it shouldn't be on
We
us
can't.
too.
No, it shouldn't.
Well, how are you?
It absolutely should. Anyway, I'm gonna go eat my dinner. Get a donut.
Yeah, I don't know if it's done yet.
Donut. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
You can still have it.
I'm gonna eat it with this one.
There's a donut.
We're going to start the council meeting. Ring, ring, the bells are like at the movie theater, at the opera. They're blinking off and on, blinking, blinking, blinking. It's 6 o'clock.
Well, Joel, you've got something started, and I'm going to be bringing it up. Well,
Yes, sir.
what I mean was your comment to me, I'm going to bring it up. So I've already had.
That's okay. We'll call to order the City of Douglasville City Council Legislative Work Session for tonight, which is Thursday, June the 13th, 2024. Our invocation will be done by the Elder Warnell Sterling of Harvest for Christ Church, and after that, we'll have our Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by the Mayor Pro Tem, City Council Member Terry Miller. Please stand for the invocation. So,
Good evening. Good evening. May we all bow our heads. Father, we thank you for this meeting, Lord. We pray that we allow you into this meeting, Lord. We pray for understanding, for wisdom, for guidance, Father. We pray, oh Lord, that we just allow you to work in us, oh Father, that we do the things that you have fit for this city, Lord, as it's pertaining to its members, its council members, Lord. We pray, Father God, that you just bless this meeting, bless each and every person who sits at the head, oh Father, and that they allow you to lead their lives. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, a nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for leading us in the pledge, and Elder Sterling, we appreciate the invocation prayer that you prayed on the council and myself. For announcements and presentations, I'd like to welcome you to the Douglasville City Council Legislative Work Session. My name is Rochelle Robinson. I'm Mayor of the City of Douglasville. This is a work session where agenda items are presented for discussion, and no official action will be taken on these items this evening. The items that we discussed tonight, official action will be taken next Monday at our 6 p.m. voting meeting. If the business you're here for is not listed as an agenda item, there will be ample time under the agenda item comments from citizens and delegates for you to discuss your business. There are just a few protocol issues I'd like to go over with everyone, and then we can get into the meat of the meeting. I ask that you would please keep your comments and presentations on a professional level, dealing with the facts that are important for this governing body to make our decisions. We will not accept comments that are considered by the chair to be of a personal attack on any individual or group of individuals. We ask that you would not please call out names or group of individuals, that you would stick to the topic and address all of your concerns to the chairperson. Only one person speaking at a time. Please do not applaud or react to speakers. Speak from the audience, cheer, or carry on a conversation when you're at the microphone in the podium. When you're at the podium, please address all of your concerns to the chairperson. Don't turn around, please, and talk to people in the audience, just so that we can conduct the business and help you get through the items this evening. I'll remind you that we're only required to accept public comments during the required public hearings. And if you have any printed materials, we ask that you would please give those printed materials, if they have not been presented to us already, to our clerk, Ms. Vicki Acker, to my right, and she will make copies and disseminate those copies to myself and council members. If you have a cell phone or electronic device, we ask that you would please put those in silent mode so they will not be disruptive during the meeting. And this is how the agenda items will be handled tonight. The committee chairperson will read the agenda item. Then that person representing that agenda item or applicant will make his or her presentation. Myself and council members will possibly ask questions to help us understand better, so that we'll have an opportunity to absorb all the information and deliberate to make our decision next Monday. After that, the committee chairperson will ask for statements from the audience if it's a public hearing. For 20 minutes for those that are in favor of the agenda item, and 20 minutes for those that are in opposition. And each person has 5 minutes to speak. This is not a question and answer format or debate. We're here just to hear the information, deliberate, and make our decisions. When you come to the podium, if you would like to speak to us, each speaker has 5 minutes, but there is a speaker card that you should have filled out. It's a blue card outside on the table. We ask that you would please fill that card out, hand it to our city clerk, and come to the podium and then make your presentation. And that speaker card has your name and address. So when you come to the podium, give us your name and address again for the record. Each person has one opportunity to speak. And again, about printed materials and your telephones. And I believe that's all the information that we have tonight. And I hope that everyone understands we're on the same page. Now, if you'd like to have a physical copy, they're outside on the desk. But if not, you can follow us on the screen. So now we'll get into the meat of the meeting, and we continue to move forward and handle everything under committees. So the first committee, after announcements and presentations, is the Economic Development Committee, and that's chaired by Mayor Pro Tem City Councilmember Terry Miller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have one item under the Economic Development Committee. However, at your pleasure, I'd like to place that further down the agenda. We have I guess, a presenter who's stuck in traffic, and so
Yes, sir.
if that's all right with you.
Yes, sir, that's fine. Thank
you,
you so
Madam.
much. You're welcome, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. We'll move on then to Finance Committee. That's chaired by Councilmember Chris Watts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome.
We have 2 items tonight.
Yes, sir. I'm not sure if your microphone is on. Is your microphone isn't on? There you go.
Item A, authorize the mayor to sign the Master Design Engineering Services Agreement and Task Order Number 1 with AECOM Technical Services, Inc. For P1001921 Fairburn Road, reconstruction, Old State Road 92, from Hospital Drive to US Highway 78 in the amount of $768,846 for the concept phase of the design services. And obviously, we don't have Mr. James Gordon up here. We have Mr. Marcus. Go ahead, Marcus.
All right, good evening, Madam Mayor
Good
and
evening.
Council. Marcus Thompson, City Engineer, 6695 Church Street. So yeah, if you recall, the Highway 92 conversion project aims to reconstruct the section of Fairburn Road, also known as Old State Route 92, from Hospital Drive to Highway 78. The project is pretty much critical for enhancing road safety, improving our pedestrian and vehicular traffic flow in that area, and just overall supporting the long-term development and accessibility for our community. The selection process began with the issuance of the RFQ 2023-009, which was posted on BidNet, and also the Georgia Procurement Registry on February 3rd, 2023, which is also a requirement from GDOT. Staff, we received 6 proposals from which 4 vendors were shortlisted. Those vendors were Tool Design Group, QK4, AECOM, and Southeastern Engineering. Basically, we selected AECOM just based off their extensive experience, rigorous procedures, and basically the considerations that they provided in their statements of qualifications. We just overall believe that AECOM brings a blend of traditional methods and expertise. Just to go over a few details, a few highlights of the agreements. The Master Design Engineering Service Agreement with AECOM outlines the scope of services, deliverables, and the project schedule. The agreement is designed to facilitate multiple tasks under specific task orders, starting with task order number 1, which is before you this evening. Task order number 1 focuses on the concept phase of the project, and the primary deliverables will be an improved GDOT concept report. The phase will also include necessary surveys, traffic analysis, such as ICE reports, subsurface utility engineering reports, lighting coordination, and a phase 1 environmental site assessment. Just want to point out too, the city was awarded approximately $1 million for the PE phase, so you can see we are saving some here. And then also, just to remind you guys that we only have to match 20% of this cost. So, yeah, and it will be funded through SPLOST 2022. Are there any questions or concerns?
You say that $1 million was awarded by ARC, you said?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And what is our portion? I think we talked about it before, like 55,000 or something like that.
Yeah, it was roughly like, I want to say 145,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions from council?
That you need it.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Thompson, and I'd like to place this on the consent agenda for Monday, if that'd be all right with y'all.
Good.
All right, Ms. Thompson, I guess stand by for item B. Authorize the mayor to sign change order number 22 with Ray Lynn and Associates, Inc. for the Town Green Amphitheater project for the purposes of adding a warming kitchen, AV, HVAC, and glazing upgrades to the event space and a bridge in the amount of $1,891,458.14. Mr. Thompson.
Yeah, I'll defer to CPS, who's here tonight to assist with the presentation.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good
My name is
evening.
Jacob Adams, and I reside at 4150 Ashford Dunwoody Road, Brookhaven, Georgia. I want to apologize for my congestion. The Georgia spring and summer allergies are impacting me, so if I need to repeat anything, please feel free to let me know, and I will gladly do so. So what we want to present to you all tonight is a updated budget report for the Douglasville Town Green Phase 2 Warming Kitchen Edition based off the updated numbers that we've received from Ray Lynn, as well as some updated numbers we've received from the design team. To start off, we have been coordinating with the financial department in depth to allocate the remaining funds that we had left over from owner's contingency, which would be transferable over to the warming kitchen addition budget. The budget has already been adopted for the warming kitchen, but what we wanted to provide you was a line-by-line breakdown that shows the updated numbers that we've received and that we plugged into our report shown in the presentation. I don't want to take up too much time to go through each line item, but what we did want to show you was a breakdown of what we've had so far and give you all the opportunity to ask any questions about any of the numbers, and we will gladly go into more detail about that specific line item. One thing I do want to touch on is the motorized trusses number, which is not currently shown. So we are currently working with the design team now, based off the amendment to their contract, to design the motorized trusses. What we have to consider with the motorized trusses is the potential design impacts from a structural capacity within the ceiling structure, as well as the electrical load capacity with the existing panel on site. What we want to be sure is that the structure has the capacity to hold the additional weight of the motors themselves with the motorized truss, and the current panel has the electrical capacity to hold any electrical components that are needed for the motorized trusses. So once that design is further vetted out, we'll have a solid price from the contractor to complete the work, and we'll be able to plug that in that budget and showcase that as well. So with that, I'll let you all review, and please feel free to ask any questions. We'll gladly answer. Okay?
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
We talk about additional lighting over the stage, motorized trusses. Those
Additional lighting.
trusses.
So the light that is currently on the trusses will remain the same. That is actually something that we've been in communication with. It'll only be the addition of the motors themselves. So the light infrastructure will remain the same for the trusses. It'll just be addition of motors to allow the trusses to be raised and lowered from the stage itself, versus having to bring a lift on site and place it either below the
Yeah.
stage or on the stage to adjust.
That was one of the questions that I've spoken with Mr. Marcus before we got started about the trusses. And now we had to come back and put them in, which, on and off, it gets a little dangerous. Me
Yes,
and
sir.
Mark Adams talked about it at the KC Sunshine Bands. So I'm glad you're coming in and adding to it, and because up and down, on and off like that. It's dangerous.
Yes, sir, absolutely. And we want to provide a product for the city that's not only convenient from a maintenance standpoint, but it's also safe. And that's certainly what we're exploring with this option.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
Perfect. Thank you all. So moving ahead, I just wanted to provide you with a brief schedule update just so you're aware of where we're currently at with the project. The 100% CD set has been issued and provided to all permitting jurisdictions for their review and comments. Those have all been received and compiled and provided to the design team. They are currently accounting for all of those comments and are going to issue a revised 100% set that includes all the comments made for final permitting. Raylin has provided us with a project duration of a 10-month schedule. This includes all the events that we've been coordinating with the city in advance that are currently planned and provided enough leeway and time for any proper safety coordination needed to take place to make the site safety to be centered around the events so that the events can be had. And obviously the comment about the warming kitchen, or excuse me, the motorized trusses. We're planning to complete those concurrently with the warming kitchen addition to keep that work all together and save time with having to mobilize twice to complete that work. We also want to provide you all with some updated renderings that we've received based on the 100% set. So what we have provided right here is a current edition showcasing the warming kitchen addition rendering. As you can see, for phase 2 of the addition, it shows the updated storefront glass for the bridge space as well. So we wanted to provide you with all of that visual so you can see what that's going to look like. For this next image is the site utility plan. A key note to find here is the highlighted area which showcases the current relocation of the current grease trap. We were having to relocate the grease trap due to the foundation addition needed to support the load bearing of the warming kitchen addition. So that grease trap will be relocated and installed in that driveway. We'll obviously make sure we have the proper infrastructure and pave that correctly. And then you'll see the additional manhole and then the tie-in to the existing utility infrastructure as well. Here, this showcases the bridge AV upgrades. So what we currently have in place right here is showing additional panel displays, speakers, and cameras across the stage area. What the goal of this scope of work is to provide the VIP experience with the optimal level of connection with the events that are going on at the stage. We want to make sure we have optimal visual, audio, and any additional functions on the bridge area that give any attendees occupying that space the full impact and experience they have of that stage area. And then the final plan shows the demolition plans for the bridge itself. This is showing the replacement of the mantle panel systems that are currently displayed with the additional storefront system that will run all the way across the bridge. And this also accounts for the HVAC upgrades to account for additional heat gain that we'll have with the storefront system in place. And that is it for my presentation. Is there any further questions?
Yes, sir. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you clarify where the stage stairs are going to go? So
So-
you don't have a drawing of that included.
The stage stair redesign, is that what you're referring to in the budget?
You've got a line item that says stage stairs, gate bench, and HVAC.
Yes, sir. So that line item consists of the changes that we had wrapped up with Phase 1. When we carried over the cost for Phase 2, those consist of the fire marshal items, the closeout items that needed to be accomplished. So the stair was the backside stair on the backside of the stage area. There was originally the two flights of stairs that we replaced with that planning system to make sure that we closed out and could achieve our CO.
Okay, these are the stairs that were already built in the back. Okay, I got
Yes,
it.
sir.
Sort of the patio area next to the green room we're talking about.
Yes, sir.
Got it.
And we just carried those costs over to showcase them in this budget, just to kind of clean and make sure we had everything broken out appropriately.
I think that needed to be clarified. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Madam Mayor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Adams, you sound fine. Just give you some Zyrtec. But she's going to be beautiful when she's all done, and this is just a sidebar issue. It's like putting lip gloss on. City Manager, our art installations that we have are, that we said we approved, where are they going to be located? I understood when the Warming Kitchen came that we were going to do the art, that we've had that art committee vote on, that Councilman Estes worked on, and it's like, we'll hang them for a quarter and then we'll change them out. Where would that be located?
Steve, you want to address that?
Yep. Madam Mayor, great question, because the wall or the place where the art was supposed to go is now covered up with where the Warming Kitchen attaches to the building. But we do now have that same wall, but it's extended further out from the building.
Okay.
So we did talk about that with TSW design team, that the wall and the way that it's created, it's the stucco, the same system that we previously had. So that is left bare for the opportunity for art to be able to go there if it's chosen to do that. There is
Okay.
nothing planned from the project to be able to do it, but that space is available for whatever the
That
city
we could-
chooses to use it for.
We could put it there. So it's just a public art that we'll have
Yes.
rotated out with local artists to show their talents. And so that was
Yes,
something
ma'am.
that we, the people in the community voted on. They wanted to have more public art. And so we had a whole committee, and it was a big to-do. We voted on these installations, so.
To further that, there was a lot of discussion about that because we knew that that wall was meant for that to be there.
Yes, sir.
But when we looked at several different options to try to solve the Warming Kitchen location, unfortunately, the only place that we could really sort of fit it and
Yeah.
allow it to looked like it was part of the building was to use that space to come off the building in that direction. So essentially, you'll notice that one elevation, if you look at the picture on the right, the blue that's at the end of the building, you'll
Yes,
notice
sir.
there's no window or anything there, purposely for making sure that if art was chosen to be put there, that it could be put there.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you so much. Thanks, Steve. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions?
Quick-
Yes,
yeah,
Mayor Pro Tem.
Did you budget for bollards along there? Because you've got that truss support pretty close to the curb there. Have you taken into account some bollard protection along that sidewalk?
So, not yet. So I think that is something, we do have the ability to be able to do it if I think we want to see how that sidewalk and how that curb is going to look. But it is something that we've talked about, but they are not shown as of yet until we can kind of see what that driveway.
Wrongly suggest you think
looks
about it
like.
now.
So the driveway gets a little bit wider there because we had to modify it for the fire truck to be able to fit in there. So all of the traffic will, as you're coming in, will go further away from the building as opposed to closer as it comes in. But still yet to be determined.
I can provide you a spec sheet on that if you want, save you the design time and money. That's all.
Is that it? Okay. Any other questions from council? Thank you all for your presentation.
Thank you.
You got anything else for us? Good, okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. With all that being said, would it be the pleasure of the council to place this on the consent agenda for Monday?
It looks like it's okay, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, city manager.
Not on this item, but on the previous item. If you all are done, I just have one question. On the previous item, Mr. Thompson noticed an error in the amount. So versus 768,846, it should be 726,846. Just want to make certain you're comfortable keeping that on the consent agenda with the lower amount.
If it's lower, of course. It's like a sale.
Just a darn minute.
I mean, is there an issue?
No, just wanted to make certain you were comfortable with it.
Yeah, I'm comfortable.
All right.
Quickly, got to spend it on something now.
And then we're asking this item also to be placed on consent agenda. Madam Mayor, that's all I had tonight in finance.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate you bring that information to us and to our staff, our city engineer, Mr. Thompson, and guest applicant, Steve, and CPS, Mr. Adams. Thank you so much. So now we'll move on. Mayor Pro Tem, you want to go to your item, or you want to wait a little
I think
longer?
we're ready to go. Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor. We will go back to item number 5, which is the Economic Development Committee. And the item is to consider and adopt a resolution approving the inclusion of Hammer Real Estate's capital project in the city's revised 2020 tax plan to acquire, construct, and equip a life science fulfillment facility located in the city of Douglasville, Georgia, and as well approving the execution and delivery of a proposed tax incentives agreement pertaining to Hammer Real Estate LLC's capital project. And we have with us today the illustrious Chris Pumphrey and the spectacular Breezy Stratton.
Ooh, I like those adjectives. Great.
You're killing me with your big words.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor and amazing council, for having us here this evening. It's great to be with you once again. Chris Pumphrey, Development Authority, City of Douglasville Development Authority, 8512 Bowden Street. I have to figure out which hat I'm wearing
I know.
each time I come speak. But it's a pleasure to be with you all this evening to present this project. I am going to just do kind of a bit of a welcome, but I'm actually going to turn it over to our guest, our consultant on the project with CB Richard Ellis, Mr. John Linio, who's been leading the project on behalf of Project Hammer, and let him talk more about his client and kind of give a bit of a presentation and overview. And then I'll come back and give more of a presentation on the actual tax incentive that we are presenting before you this evening, if that's okay with the good of the group. Excellent. John?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is John Lenio. I am a site selection consultant with CBRE, address 2575 East Camelback Road in Phoenix. So I did travel in for this very important project.
You brought the heat with you.
Excuse
The
Oh,
heat.
yes. Some of it.
Yes, sir.
It'll be 110 back home, so this is nice.
But it's a dry heat.
Yeah, it's dry, like a hairdryer, right? So as part of a site selection consultant for the company behind Project Hammer, our job is to help them be a matchmaker with communities. And the client that we are working with is a Fortune 100 company that is in the life sciences and pharmaceutical industry. They are looking to build a highly automated fulfillment center to distribute pharmaceuticals and specialty drugs to its customers. Its primary customers are physician groups, hospitals, 1, 2, and then other cancer treatment centers. One of the primary factors when we're looking at regions is availability of labor. And the company has operations in the state of Georgia that are unrelated to this project, so they feel comfortable with the labor market for fulfillment center and material handling employees. So that checked one box. The second box is availability of land. And as you all know, for industrial development, that's becoming less and less and less. The company is right now focused on the Bright Star Logistics piece of land, which is, I think, on I-20 and exit 34, right next to Academy Sports, so to the west of Academy. We've been working very directly with the Silverman team. They've been very good at helping us identify the opportunity to build a 407,000 plus or minus 407,000 square foot fulfillment center. This facility is expected to be an enhancement with automated equipment. So if you can imagine within a big warehouse, it's not big washer dryers. They're kind of small pill bottles, like you might see in your Walgreens or your pharmacy, but they're in small boxes. And so in order to fulfill all these orders within an 8-state region in the Southeast, the company is looking to invest roughly over $70 million of automated and robotic equipment. Compared to if we were doing this project 10 years ago, it might have been more labor for just going to the shelves, picking and packing, boxes. But now we have AI. So AI is in everything now, and it's even in a distribution center. The client, for purposes of looking at the facility, to give you an idea on scale, the facility at full operations will process about $9 billion of goods. So that's a lot of money and a lot of little pill bottles in big boxes. The project is expected to create a little bit over 200 net new jobs. So 202 is what's in your documents. Majority of these jobs, it's still a fulfillment center, are material handlers. So these are, hopefully Douglasville residents and Douglas County residents who have either worked in a warehouse before or are looking to start. That's about 80% of the 200 or so jobs. 10% are support, so like maintenance techs on the equipment, and then 10% are supervisors and managers. The interesting thing about this client, if and when they choose Douglasville for this project, I think what you'll find is the company likes to train new associates and give upward mobility in the economic ladder within the company. At a few distribution centers and fulfillment centers that this business has throughout the U.S., what we tend to find is people stay for 10, 15, and 20 years. Wow. Because a major selling point that the company has is, one, it's a newer facility that many may not be used to working in. The company goes out of their way to have very nice design elements on the building so that if anybody's driving down the road and are going to an interview, it looks like a pleasing place to want to stop and look. The company invests in landscaping and walking trails around the buildings, and when it's not so humid, they encourage employees to take a walk just to get some outside air. And the facility is air conditioning, so not every warehouse has air conditioning. So in addition to just the facility, the company has a significant benefits package, which is very attractive, that starts roughly within 30 days of hire. Anything that you can think on health, vision, dental, 401k. The company also pays for volunteer time. So one of the major elements for the company's foundation is they want to have impact on the community. And the focus is bringing affordable health care to communities that are either vulnerable or underserved. That's kind of a national and global mandate for the firm. And the company brings that locally when it's the right fit. Just an example I can give with some work that we're doing in Texas, the company is investing in local oncology physician groups to build cancer treatment centers and bring cancer treatment to very smaller communities. Mm-hmm. So the company's putting their money behind what their mission statement is. And I think for recruiting new employees, that's very attractive because there's a mission behind just going in, putting boxes in a tote, putting tape on the box and shipping it out. Excuse me, just looking at some notes. For typical distribution centers, the first knee jerk is, well, there's going to be a lot of truck traffic. For this Project Hammer, relative to most fulfillment centers, truck traffic is very light. So during the mornings from 6 a.m. to 1 p.m., there will be roughly 30 to 35 trucks incoming. They come in, they bring in the product. During the day, the boxes and totes get fulfilled, and about 30 to 35 trucks go out at night. So to give you a point of comparison, if you were considering a 1 million square foot distribution or fulfillment center, the typical variety that's not on the pharmaceutical side, you probably would see truck traffic roughly between 200 and 300 a day. When we look at if you're a real estate geek like Chris Breezy and I are, and you look at site plans, you'll also see parking spots for these big trailers. So like a 1 million square foot facility would tend to have 500 to 600 parking spots. This facility for Project Hammer will have no trailer parking spots on site. So that means one, lower truck traffic, lower, hopefully, problems with people getting in and out of the location. And trucks are not just sitting there. They're coming in the morning, leaving at night. And then the cycle happens every day. One interesting thing about this project, from a fiscal impact standpoint that Chris is going to touch on, is with that $9 billion of goods that are being produced through the facility, the company expects to have inventory taxes after Freeport is considered. So point of reference, we've asked the head of tax for the company to give us an estimate of what they expect at full operations. This facility is likely to have about $170 million of taxable inventory. That is not part of the abatement that's being considered. So from a tax point of view, that translates a little bit over $2 million a year of local personal property taxes just for inventory. So that's a unique fiscal impact that most fulfillment centers cannot say that they generate and we purposefully asked it not to be part of the personal property tax abatement that you are considering today. I've said a lot, and I want to be able to ask and answer any questions, if we may.
Okay, thank you. Before I turn it over to the council, I guess I can, this might be more for Chris's sake. There's a number of criteria that go into, like the job, the number of jobs, the wages and so forth. How does the authority monitor the performance on each of those issues? Like make sure that the jobs that are provided do actually meet the income level that's promised?
Yes, yes. So part of our amazing team is Breezy Straighten, who oversees our compliance. So on an annual basis, a company is required to report in on their performance, and that performance is on the investment that they said that they're going to commit to. So that's, in this regard, it's on the real estate investment and it's on the personal property investment. And it's also on the number of jobs that they said that they were going to create and the average wages of those jobs. And so those reports are due to us every April 1st. We do what we call a compliance report. So for every company that is on a tax incentive plan, we run that report. We actually just completed that report for this year about a week ago. So every year we monitor that and we take it to kind of a tax incentive committee to review and show where everybody is on a compliance standpoint.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So also as part of the compliance review every year, if the company is short of their goals of both jobs and investment, there's a built-in pro rata reduction. So it's performance-based. The company has purposely been conservative with the 200 jobs and the 202, and 177 million of investment. So hopefully that they will overperform as their preference.
Is the company going to own the building, or are you renting the building?
They will own it.
Okay. And how far along the design is? Has some consideration been given to the heat island effect? Because we're starting to gather a lot of buildings of this scale on that part of town. And is there any consideration to the design of the roof when it comes to that?
I don't know, but I can follow up.
That would be appreciated. Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
No problem.
I will at this time then turn it over the comments to the mayor and the rest of council. Madam Mayor, if you'd like to go first.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you so much, Mr. Lolino. Is that, he says close enough. And Mr. Pumphrey, Ms. Straighten, we appreciate this opportunity. And it's not really a question, it's a comment. I wanted to commend and congratulate economic development for bringing this life science sector to the community. This is one of the target areas that we were really focusing on, to have diversity in building and especially in manufacturing. So I wanted to congratulate you all on that. And it seems like it's going to be exciting, that you're really looking out for your employees and for your business. That makes a great community partner, especially for people that work there. And this area is not, it's not highly populated with residents. Bright Star Connector is in the area of commercial. So I think if passed, it'll be a good fit. But I know we have to get into the meat of what all the requirements and asks are in the actual document, but I want to say that. So thank you so much for working hard and bringing this to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We'll head down this direction. Councilman Watts.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. One thing I was wondering, you described the truck traffic. Are we talking 18-wheelers? Are we talking about box-type trucks, or a mixture?
Roughly 20% of the truck traffic numbers I offered are typical box trucks. So those are like the big U-Hauls. And then the remainder, most of them are 53-foot tractor trailers. Those aren't the huge long ones, but if tractor trailers are small, it's on the smaller side.
Okay. And I don't know if it gets discussed at this point in time, but like parking, based on our 1 per 1,000, is that something that is going to be a variance down the road, or is that part of this process, or?
Have we already gone through the development plan presentation?
Okay, all right,
think
never
so.
mind. I guess we can talk about that when the time
That'll be down
comes.
the road.
All right, that's all I had.
Anybody else on that end?
Thank you.
Councilwoman Miller.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I think a few of my questions have already been answered. I was curious, though, I know that you had mentioned the Bright Star area for this. Is there a certain parcel that has been picked out that we're looking at?
I'll touch on that. Actually, in your the documents, there should be an aerial map, and that map will have like a little white box. I tried to fit the white box like on the map where it actually is. But if you're thinking of the Bright Star connector, where the roundabout is, and where that roundabout is, their entryway would be right on that kind of southern part of the roundabout. So where the roundabout kind of, if you would exit the roundabout, if you were going to be able to go towards the interstate, that's where it would be.
So it would-
closer to the churches on that
Okay, but it
end.
would be on the connector, not actually on Bright Star Road?
Correct, it'd be
Okay.
on the connector.
Okay.
And more closer to the interstate, well, maybe kind of in between, right in the middle between the interstate and the connector.
Right, okay, so then the traffic would be routed, though, down Bright Star Connector from there to 20, and not down Bright Star Road to
would-
78?
I'm not 100% certain. I would
I know.
venture to say it would follow the traffic patterns of I'm not sure what the rest of the park, how it flows. But I would venture to say it would go east versus going
Yeah,
west.
I mean, that would make sense.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to verify that. I may have more questions later, but that's all for now.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hudson, do you have anything? No, thank you. My questions are answered. Okay, go down this direction. Councilman Davis?
I'm fine with it.
Councilman Estes? Councilwoman Bernaley? Okay. One last thing, just a comment, I guess, really, and I know we've had the landscape, or the civil engineers talk about this development there. You know, this site in particular, although it's not right up against the interstate, it will be visible from the interstate, and this is the entrance into Douglasville from the west. And the first thing people will see when they come into Douglasville will be the backside of your building. And so I think it'll be very incumbent upon you to present something that is aesthetically amenable to the community. It's going to be very important that we're not looking at a bunch of bays and docks that won't be very, very attractive. And this is the welcome to Douglasville. So I think you're cognizant of that. That's important. So, all right. If there's no other questions, we will not put this on the consent agenda. I think some council members want to have a little more time to mull stuff over. Is there anything else that you have for your presentation? Or you covered it all?
I think that covers most everything.
Okay. All right, well, this item will come back up on Monday, and we'll have a further discussion, and then we will vote on it then. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Mr. Humphrey. Madam Mayor, that is all we have under the Economic Development Committee at this time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. Pumphrey, Ms. Stratton, and Mr. Lenino. Thank you for coming from Phoenix. You're welcome. We'll move on then to the next committee, which is Legislative and Intergovernmental Committee. That's chaired by Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Terry Miller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no business under the Legislative and Intergovernmental Committee at this time.
Thank you. I did. Thank you so much.
Yeah. You
I
skipped
know.
me.
How would I do that? Housing and Community Affairs Committee, chaired by Councilmember Howard Estes.
That's okay. Now I can just do two in a row.
I know.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no business for the Housing and Community Affairs Committee or the Personnel and Organizations Committee tonight.
Okay, two
Thank
birds
you.
with one stone. So now we're at item number 10, which we do have business. That's Planning and Development Committee. That's chaired by Councilmember Nicole Miller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome.
So we do have a couple of items this evening.
Yes, ma'am.
The first is item number 24-196, and that is to consider a request for exemption plat approval for the purpose of splitting a 1.737 acre tract from a larger tract of 53.59 acres at 1521 Lee Road in land lots 719, 720, 721, 722 from District 18, Section 2, parcel ID 0719182005. Application by Mr. Patel, and I believe Mr. Marcus Thompson is going to go over that item with us this evening.
Okay.
Good evening again.
Yes,
Marcus
sir.
Thompson, City Engineer, 6695 Church Street. So the exemption plat splits 1.737 acre tract 1B, as it is shown highlighted on page 14. along Lee Road from the overall 53.59 acre parcel, which currently now houses the Novo Sweetwater Apartments. This tract is separated by a creek from the apartments with future plans to combine it with an adjacent property, the adjacent property to the right of it for a commercial development on Lee Road. We do have applicant representatives of the applicant here to give you more details and insights regarding the future endeavors.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. If I can just make sure right quick, am I understanding this correctly? We're wanting to take a portion of this land from the larger tract, and then later it's going to be added to another tract?
That's correct.
Is that correct? Okay, okay, thank you. And you said the applicant is here, or Mr. Fowler?
Evening,
Yeah.
everyone. Joe Fowler, Post Office 489 Douglasville. There is pending an annexation and rezoning request with respect to this parcel, which is combined with another to the south, and the request is for a convenience store and a package store. It will come before you after it's advertised during this month for hearing in August. It'll actually be advertised in July for a hearing in August. So it's connected to a smaller tract, which together would house two buildings of 5,000 square feet each. Because this is being parceled off or carved off of the larger tract, there needed to be an exemption plat. So that's the nature of the application.
Okay,
Simple.
okay. Thank you for that. Did the applicant want to speak to this at all? Or were you just here?
I'm here on his behalf.
Okay, gotcha. Council, did you guys have questions or comments regarding this item quite yet? No, I don't think so. Unfortunately, I did not get to go over this one with Mr. Gordon, so I've got to go drive by it, ponder it, pray over it, if that's okay. And if council doesn't have any more questions, I guess we'll take this item up on Monday. Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys, our next item is item 24-194. That is to hold a public hearing and consider a proposed ordinance to amend the Unified Development Ordinance to allow for front and rear attached garage placement on residential structures in the R5 Single-Family Cottage Residential District. And Ms. Shayla Reed is going to go over this item with us.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Shayla Reed, Community Development Director, 6695 Church Street. The item before you is a request that have come to you from a few weeks back. I mentioned that staff was looking into revising the text for R5 cottage homes. Currently, your code requires for the driveway and garages to only be into the rear of the structures. And so staff is proposing to allow for it to be rear and or front yard as well. That would be what staff is bringing before you with that information. We took it to the Planning Commission during their their June 4th meeting, and they recommended approval.
Okay, thank you for that. And I know that we had spoke about that earlier, and Council, I was wondering what your thoughts were on this, because I know that this is an ordinance that we wanted to see, because in doing these cottage style homes, we wanted those rear entries. So we talked about possibly adding some kind of percentages to it, so that even if it is either or, that we can at least keep some of those rear entries, because that was ultimately the look that we were going for. But I would like to know what you guys think of that.
I like the percentages.
Okay.
Very much so. Are we writing the change so that it is, we use the word du jour, by law, that they can have it, or do they have to have a variance to get the front entry?
So it would be permitted, right out
It would be
permitted.
a permitted use?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
okay. All right, but I do like the idea of maintaining a percentage rather than
Okay.
allowing either or for all of them, because you could end up with all of the entrances be in the front. So we think we'd like to avoid that.
Got it. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Were there any other questions or comments on that? No. I know, Ms. Reed, we had talked about possibly looking at that on Monday. Do we want to kind of stick to that, or?
So I think just for a little bit more clarity, so you would like to see a percentage. That would be right out permitted, as mentioned. I guess the question that I would have would be, Do you have an idea what the percentage will be? Is it 30% one over the other, 30% 70? Like what type of formula would you like to see, or would you like to see various options? And then
I would like to see various options, and with that being said, now I wonder if, like we had mentioned and I had forgotten, we should probably look at tabling this item.
Yes, ma'am, and I would recommend, we'll come back to you all, because one of the impetus for this item is because some of our rear entry garage cottage homes back up to an alley that as city sanitation service, we cannot service those homes.
Right.
So it becomes an operational issue over a design issue.
Got it.
So we would like to come back with some recommendations that would address any homes that would back up to alleys.
Can we
Okay.
not make the alleyways wider?
Then it may become a street.
So it's something for us to, I feel like it is something for us to come back
Sounds like a
to.
little bit of an excuse, but.
If we're going to table it, though, do we still need to have the public hearing?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
it is a public hearing, so it
Yes,
has to
ma'am.
have a.
Okay, got it. Well, in that case, then, since this is a public hearing, let's go ahead and open the floor. If we have any residents here this evening who would like to speak for or against this proposal, come on down and give us your name and address for the record, please, Mr. Fowler.
Joe Fowler, Post Office Box 49 in Douglasville. I rise only to speak with respect to the revisions to the R5 ordinance that eliminated rear garages on alleyways for all products. The very next application that you have before you is the 33 acres at Elizabeth Drive and Campbellton Street. And the nature of the configuration of this track is such that we couldn't do any percentage of the rear loads with this property. So to the extent that you're going to consider revising it, we would ask you to make it optional so that it can be for the entire tract. If you decide to put a percentage, whatever that happens to be, 25, 30%, whatever it is, this project would be unbuildable on that site. So our encouragement is to leave the ordinance the way it was drafted and on which we are relying for this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Was there anyone else who would like to speak for or against this? Ms. Welsh, if you'll come give us your name and address for the record, please.
Cindy Welch, 3002 Concord Way. I just have a question. If someone comes in asking for this zoning, this R5 zoning, at that point, will they tell you which homes will have rear garages and which will have front garages? Or is it when they're building that they're going to determine that? Because when you're reviewing the plans, it's going to make a difference. Is that a street, or is that an alleyway? So I would think that you'd want to know at the time that you're rezoning property.
Well, I think that's why we're looking at tabling this, so that we can figure out exactly what we need those numbers to be. That way, when someone does come in and apply, we'll have a better process.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much.
General rule, the development plan isn't furnished until after the zoning.
Well, before the zoning, they're going to have a site plan. I guarantee.
Very rough site plan.
Well,
It
but
doesn't have any houses on it, or it may have a proposed street, but it may be very hard to tell exactly which houses would have a rear.
well, by the way the property lays, they're going to know if that's a street or a driveway. I guarantee.
Thank you, Ms. Welsh. All right, guys, if there was no other comments on this item.
I do have.
Oh, Madam
Madam Chair.
Mayor, yes.
That's okay. So I want us to consider what Attorney Fowler has brought to our attention about the next item that's coming before us, so we don't want to prohibit a development that may be coming if we have or, and we make a determination based on each
So-
application. Is that going to be more difficult? And it's just for us to think about, some things for us to think about. If we're going to say some percentage of, I like the percentages, but I don't want to prohibit other developments from coming forward. So if we said or, if we just do it case by case, or if that's going to be too
Would that not
subjective.
be a variance, though, if it was being done case by case?
If we establish a percentage, it's up to the developer to meet that percentage, just like as if it were building code
Right.
or zoning code, so.
Because
have
this
to-
is something that we
as long
have
as they know about it
seen
ahead of
when
time,
we
it's up to
toured
them.
other
Yeah.
areas. That
Okay.
that we all, I think, said that this is what we wanted to see,
But-
and I think Mr. Estes has something to say.
But if we table this item now, then the next one goes through without any involvement of this item.
Then it'll
Correct?
be for the next, it'll be for future projects.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Thank you.
Got it.
Councilman
Thank
Estes, just a point of order on that. The next item can't go through as currently planned without the current item. Because it doesn't
Attorney
have
Nguyen, you can
back
come on down.
garages.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We have some people from the audience that want to speak.
One more comment.
Okay. I think we're still open. How are we on time, Ms. Hager? Oh, look, you're good.
Come on down, Attorney Nguyen.
If you'll just come give us your name and address for the record, please.
Frank Wynn, 8925 Orchard Drive, Douglasville, 30134. And in relation to the next item, I agree with what you're saying. What I think you were saying, which is that it seems that if you pass or pass the next item without addressing this item, you've created a variance by just, putting the pedal to the metal and moving it forward. And this is the next item is a rather large development, and so the change, they need to be addressed at the same time. And I'll save other comments for my opposition to the next item.
Thank you for that. Then for clarity, then either Ms. Hampton,
If we keep it the way it is presented from staff, it would not prohibit the next item from going forward. But if we put percentages on, it would. Is that the bottom line?
So in my opinion, if you're tabling the item, that does make it so that the applicant would be held to the current standards as it is with the decision that you'll be making after that item. So that means that you will have to decide on how you would want to see this action take place to help that next decision to be made, if you're looking to tie the two together.
part of my concern is that we created this ordinance because that was part of our design standards, and that's what we wanted to see. So I hate to just come in and remove that entire section without giving it better consideration. And I feel like where there's a will, there's a way. There may be another avenue to look at this, but I don't want to just remove that ordinance as a whole, because that's something that we had decided on together as a council.
We're in a quandary.
I mean, well, let's say, the next item was designed with the current ordinance in existence, which requires all rear entry, correct?
So the next item, they're proposing it to have this
Right,
decision. I'm
So let me
sorry.
clarify, the current law, the current code is all R5 must have rear entry.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that, if we do nothing on this, then, then the next project obviously can't be built according to this design. But presumably, they knew that going in. Am I misunderstanding this? If the current code requires rear entry,
Correct.
they would have been presenting something, if we were even having this discussion right now on this item, they would be asking for a variance on all of their units to have a front entry, which would be completely opposite of what the intent of the zoning is.
So for the record, a variance cannot be granted for rear yard garages. Your variance can only be allowed for location or by dimension.
Okay.
So it would not be granting a variance for that location,
So
which
we
is
need to-
why they had to come about this option as an option.
So we want to be clear about that this was laid out with the understanding that we right now have an ordinance that doesn't allow for that type of development.
Correct.
Okay? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right, so can someone help me then with some guidance on how we want to move forward with this then? Because I would like to table it so that we can see what you guys want to do, but I don't know how we move forward with the next item if we don't. So our other option, I guess, would be to, between, now and tomorrow, to get Ms. Reed numbers that we're okay with looking at for Monday.
Yeah, I would just, if you're going to table one, you may as well table the other. There are other concerns, again, as we said, about rear entry garages that have to deal with servicing those homes. You do have an ordinance that's in place that really is not necessarily all around practical. We have some changes that we need to make as it relates to rear entry garages and alleys that we have to bring to you that's currently pending. So my recommendation, if you need some time to think about this and deliberate over it, that you table both B and C.
Okay.
And that's, of course, that's going to affect the applicant, but I don't know how you move forward with one without the other.
If I may, can staff bring with that presentation information on the size of our trucks and the necessity for turning radiuses and things like that, so we can look a little more closely at the width of rear entry elements and alleyways and so forth?
Yeah, we're prepared to be able to address that to you. That's.
I grew up
yes.
in a town where they have, full-size buses going down alleyways and small streets, and
Ms.
it manages to
Dickinson.
get done, so that's why I'm curious to see what the mathematics on that are.
Would you mind coming to the podium to talk about rear entry alleyways and tributary and how we have to address those? Currently, we cannot service those with our trash trucks.
Melissa Dickinson, Public Services Department. That is correct. Currently, at Tributary, we purchased a 8-yard rear load truck that we have to service the Tributary area with, because our large trucks, they won't fit the turn radius in there.
Okay. Is it turn radius, is it the turn radiuses that are the problem mostly, or is it the width of the alleyways themselves?
It's both.
Okay.
It is
We don't, but we
both.
don't allow parking in alleyways, correct? I mean, I understand if cars are parked in the alleyway, on the right-of-way in the alleyway, that can obviously cause problems. Do we not currently allow?
It has nothing to do with parking. It has to do with the alleyways themselves. One of the things that we're addressing is to deal with the alleyways, and that if we're going to approve alleyways to be constructed in the city, they have to be larger to comply with what we need. We particularly specifically had to buy another vehicle just for that area, for that purpose.
And we also use the smaller ones for pickup in the plaza east and west as well, correct?
Those are not the same trash trucks that we're speaking of. This is a specific garbage truck just for these alleyways. We can actually service the downtown area with just a standard pickup truck.
Okay.
Okay.
But the cottages, which is the thing we're talking about now, is what we're trying to, this item is
Correct.
addressing.
Right.
But
No,
it does impact the next item.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. Coach, did you have something to say?
Well, I was going to state the obvious. We hadn't even heard the next item yet. There's going to be some issues involved with that and some folks that want to weigh in on it. So I'm just wondering if we can't get to the next item and circle back, because.
Is that your way of saying, let's move it along?
Yes.
Yes, I
Well-
think you need to have both the public hearings because they are public hearings.
Okay, well then, since we've had one public hearing, guys, we won't table it then, and we'll figure out how we want to move forward with it then for Monday. Okay. Guys, our next item is item number 24-193. That is to hold a public hearing and consider a request for a change in zoning from R2, single-family residential detached, to R5, single-family cottage residential district, for 33.26 acres located at the intersection of Campbellton Street and I-20 in Land Lot 22, District 1, Section 5, parcel IDs 0022015C014, 0022015C015, 0022015C016, 0022015C018, 0022015C076. Oh, goodness. 0022015C077, 0022015C088, 0022015C089, Land Lot 23, District 1, Section 5, parcel ID 002301500024, application by Trayton Holmes. Ms. Shayla Reed is going to talk to us. I feel like I just went to the eye doctor.
I know.
Goodness.
Thank you for that. So right now, the applicant is requesting to go from R2 to R5. R5 is our cottage home zoning classification. The property is located within Ward 2. It's located along Campbellton Street and I-20. near the ramp where I think that is going west on I-20. And the applicant is asking to increase its density from R2 to R5. As you know, the way that that goes for zoning is 2 units per acre to be increased to 5 units per acre. And this is primarily a residential area. During the June 4th Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission recommended denial of this request. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Reed.
Thank you.
Would the applicant or Mr. Fowler like to come down and speak to us about this item?
Evening again. Joe Fowler, Post Office Box 49. Allow me to introduce Richard Parvey. He's Vice President for Trayton Homes, who's in charge of land acquisition. As you know, this application seeks the rezoning of these 33 acres at the intersection of Campbellton Street and Elizabeth Drive, but it's close, of course, in proximity to I-20. The applicant is Trayton, which has been in business for 53 years. They build all around the metro area, elsewhere in Georgia, also in Florida, and they have a development close to the municipal building on Highway 92. Everybody in this room recalls that over the years, the property has been put under contract for several non-residential standard retail uses, multifamily apartments, mixed use with retail up front, and multifamily apartment in the rear. Obviously, none of those proposed uses were deemed to be suitable. Everybody wanted it to stay residential. Interestingly, for purposes of not just the discussion about this application, but the R5 ordinance as well, is last year the city revised its comprehensive plan and the medium-density residential character area. And at this point, if you look carefully at the comprehensive plan on page 122, what you'll see is that the city's future land use plan permits a slightly higher density than the existing R2 rezoning permits. That, of course, as Shayla mentioned, is limited to 2 homes per acre. The R5 permits 5, but the overall density of this, as designed that you see before you, is 2.49 units for the entire tract. Based on the fact that the city changed this particular 33-acre tract to the medium-density residential character area, we spoke with our clients and recommended that we proceed based on your decision in December to modify this tract to the medium-density residential area. What is before you tonight is a rezoning application, but it is not a future land use map amendment. It is consistent with what you've already planned for this area. So we've designed the plan that you see on the site plan identified before you, and I will show you slide number 2 so those in the audience can see it as well. You'll note that the entrance comes off Elizabeth. There's some significant changes from the meeting that we had before planning and zoning. I'll go over that in a moment. But as you enter off Elizabeth, there's a left-hand turn into the development, and the amenity area is, as you see, designed at that location. You cannot do rear loads on this site because of the geography. It prohibits it. I should note that this site plan is modified from the site plan that was presented to the zoning board on June the 3rd. Traffic issues were mentioned as particular concerns by the 2 people who spoke at the meeting. And so we spent the last week working with the engineers on this project and talking to the DOT about how to address the issues that were mentioned concerning traffic. I'll come back to that in just a minute as well. The proposal is, as noted, for 83 homes, which equates to that 2.49 that I mentioned earlier. These houses will average prices starting in the mid-400s to the high 500s, depending, of course, on the finishes. Samples of the homes are shown on these slides that you see in number 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I'm sorry, that was 7. What you see in this slide is the pool and clubhouse, and you saw that on the site plan as well. There will be an entry monument at the connecting point of the entrance into the subdivision, and an example of those entry monuments is what you see on this particular slide. It's actually slides 10 and 11. Now, Trayton scheduled and conducted 2 separate meetings with those who live in the area of the subdivision. One occurred on February the 29th. The second was the week before. Actually, it was on May the 30th. We sent invitation letters to just under 50 residents for each meeting, and a total of 25 different families participated in those meetings. Some came to both, but a total, by looking at the roster of those who attended, a total of 25 different families. At the meetings, issues were raised about the number of houses over the R2 density. 33 acres, you may or may not get 63. If you do the math, you could, but it depends on how it would be designed. That would be 60, 65 versus the 83 additional homes that were planned over and beyond the base under R2. And then the discussion was not only about the added homes, but also about traffic. Now, to address the traffic issues, you'll notice on the site plan, and I'm going to go back to that. You'll notice on the site plan that at Elizabeth Drive, no left turns are permitted out of the subdivision going west onto Elizabeth Drive. Could I get the people in the control booth to zoom in on the upper right-hand corner of that if possible? I'd like the public to be able to see that, and if there's anybody back there that can do that. It is designed so that there is no left turn out onto Elizabeth. You can't leave the subdivision, go to Elizabeth Drive, turn right, go up Orchard, go by Frank's house, and then somehow get on Rove Circle. You can't do that. Plus, and subject to DOT approval, 2 more lanes are proposed to be added to Elizabeth Drive for a total of 3 lanes exiting Elizabeth Drive. So no left out of the subdivision, but on the right, you come out of the subdivision, and Trayton will add 3 lanes as drawn. There is a proposed, that is, as drawn on what you have before you and what is displayed above. There is a proposed dedicated left lane onto Campbellton toward town. This is going to be subject to DOT approval, but working with the engineers, we believe the geometry works correctly and that we have sufficient right-of-way, so we don't have to do anything north toward the Skinner property. It'll be on their property, which is the old Weeks home. So there'll be a dedicated left, a proposed straight lane onto Hospital Drive, which, by the way, given this proposed change, it aligns Elizabeth Drive more correctly with Hospital Drive. And then thirdly, there is a proposed right-only lane onto Campbellton Street going toward I-20. And then also, as you see on the plan, between lots 6 and 7, there is a right-out only lane into Campbellton Street, which is designed to keep traffic off of Elizabeth Drive. So of those assembling in the left part of the development, as they come out of the development, they can turn right onto Campbellton and get to I-20. Now, another issue raised in the community meeting was the privacy concerns of the new homes that will be constructed in this subdivision as it backups to the rear of the existing homes. To address those concerns, Trayton has agreed to make it a condition of the zoning that decorative fencing 6 feet in height and double-row landscaping will be installed along the side of each rear or side of the existing homes in Crowley Heights subdivision that fronts on either the east or south side of Allison Court. So let me make that more clear. Every house that you see adjoining this subdivision, there'll be a 6-foot fence with doubled row landscaping all the way from Elizabeth Drive down to the north part of this tract and all the way out to the west. plus decorative fencing 6 feet in height and double-row landscaping will be installed along the rear of lots 1 through 10 that adjoin Campbellton Street. So commencing at Elizabeth Drive and coming all the way down to the south edge of lot number 10, there'll be double-row landscaping with a 6-foot fence. Samples of the fencing that they've done before are on slides 11 and 12. Pardon me. You'll see that is a 4-foot fence, but these are 6 feet with double-row landscaping, which you see on the lower left picture. And then there's a 6-foot fence there on the right photograph. There'll be a mandatory homeowners association with routine covenants and restrictions, and in the covenants, there'll be a cap on the number of homes and the rentals within the subdivision. Sidewalks will be installed on both sides of the internal roadways in the subdivisions, and streetlights will be installed throughout the subdivision. All utilities in the community will be underground. All homes will be served by the water and sewer services provided by WSA. The project will comply with all stormwater sedimentation control requirements. Nothing can leave the site under the regulations of the WSA. There'll be roughly 10 acres of open space in the subdivision, a portion of which will contain the mandatory stormwater pond. If you look on the site plan, it's the lower southwest corner right there at I-20. Now, in December, when the clients first came to meet with me and we met with the city, we learned at that point that the city had amended the future land use map, which includes this very property, to make it medium-density residential. And then they explained that medium-density residential, as defined on page 202, that provides what we are requesting in here in terms of the slightly higher density than the R2. It's permitted under the long-range land use plan. We had a discussion about it, and when we looked at R5, we realized that it requires rear loads. This project, as you look on the site plan, cannot be constructed that way. Though what we are requesting is consistent with the comprehensive plan, it is not, and we understand it was not consistent with R5. And that's why the R5 change was submitted to the Planning and Zoning and approved last week, and why it's before you tonight. I understand, I helped write the DCD ordinance that created tributary 30 years ago. And the alleyways were the idea of accomplishing what is appropriate on that site. It was native earth, and they could do alleyways with whatever density was required. It will not fit on this site. If you would impose a percentage requirement, we'll go back to the drawing board. I understand you want to look at whether or not a percentage would work. And when Mr. and I were hearing for the first time that this might not be passed as proposed, we thought, at a minimum, we'll need to table it to see if we can work in that type of change and what you see designed on that site plan. So we don't oppose the tabling. We want to work with the city, as frankly, the city has been working with us since December for the purpose of trying to meet your long-range land use plan for this parcel. It is not commercial. There's no commercial on the street, as some of the developments were proposed. It's just more housing than anybody who lives in the neighborhood wanted. But to make it work, given that location and the price of the property, there's nothing else we could do. Everybody knows this site has been waiting to be developed since the old Maud Morris house that probably only Joel Dodson and I know about. When her house was destroyed or moved in the 60s, this site has been waiting for something to happen, just like it happened on the opposite side of the interstate. With that change last fall, the opportunity that we bring before you tonight meets that. There's an interesting quote in the comp plan that states this: the areas designed as medium-density residential are characterized by existing neighborhoods and primarily suburban parts of the city that are stable and not facing immediate pressure to transition to a more dense and urban style of suburban development. That's the language out of the ordinance. What is proposed here not acceptable to some, we understand. But what is proposed will be a stable residential development that meets the goals of the city's vision as you put in the plan. Now, if there are
Bless you.
technical questions, Richard can respond to any that you may have. We won't be able to answer any questions about whether or not there could be rear loads here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fowler. All right. Goodness. And I appreciate the going over everything with us, and honestly, I appreciate the applicant taking the time to meet with the residents as many times as he has, although I feel like there's still going to be some more questions to be had this evening. Before we open the floor up for a public hearing, council, did you guys have questions or comments of the applicant? No. With that being said, guys, let's go ahead and open this public hearing. Once you come down, if you'll just give your name and address for the record. And some of you, if you've already been here, you're going to have to give it again.
If they'll let me to do that back in the back.
Thank you. Cindy Welch, 3002 Concord Way. I only have a couple questions, because I know there's talk about putting an alleyway behind the houses. And that may be good for some in R5, but when you look at how this is being developed, I just don't see how alleyways are going to help anything. The houses that back up to Campbellton, do you really want an alley on that to see from Campbellton and have their driveways come out onto Campbellton? It doesn't seem like that's a very safe thing. And the same way with the ones where it says the Planet Landscape Buffer. I can't imagine why you would want driveways coming out into that landscape buffer. And I would think that the existing homes that are there would much prefer to see a fence and landscape buffer than driveways. But that's just me. And I do have a question, and I guess it goes to the golf course. The little green down, and I can't
I
see
think
what
that
the
may be
lots are.
green space. There's 10 acres that's going to be undeveloped, that's going to be between the subdivision and
Okay.
Country Club Estates, where
Well,
it will back
and
up to
I
Par
figured
Drive.
There must be an area between the two lots that can get to that, because there's that little light green.
I don't,
I just had a question about that, but, I mean, for the most part, oh, thank you, Joe. For the most part, I think it would be a decent development for that area. But I don't think they need the back alleyways.
thank you, Ms. Welch.
Just
Thank
something
you.
that I've
Okay,
been reviewing.
thanks. All right, who's next? I know I saw a few people standing up. If you'll give that to these ladies right here, thank you, and just give us your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Chris Sanchez. I live at 8951 Campbellton Street, which is just beyond where this map shows. My primary concern is the fact that where I live is right where Campbellton switches down to one lane. And I know now, currently, the traffic pattern, it backs up at the stop sign that goes beyond on the connector of the road that connects Hospital Drive over to Campbellton. And at times, there are very, very bad traffic issues, especially during school hours when the parents are going. It's very hard to get out of the driveway as it is. Today, apparently, there was a film that was being shot somewhere around here, and I had, my neighbor couldn't even get out of her driveway because the traffic was backed all the way up to 20. So my main concern is not necessarily homes being built, but the number of homes and the amount of traffic that's going to create if you start thinking about the percentage of kids or homes that have high school kids that have to go left onto Campbellton and the traffic back up even now. I envision that if this subdivision goes in at that R5 and that density, that we're going to have a situation that we have now on Highway 5 going right off westbound going towards Walmart, which is absolutely awful. So that is my main concern. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me. I'm Daddy Ballou. I live on Elizabeth Drive, the very end of Elizabeth Drive, and I've been living there for 50 years this month. It's been a wonderful place to live, just a great neighborhood. I've got several pages of notes here, and I really don't know where to begin, but I don't want to bore you or take up a lot of your time. I don't understand this quote that Joe Fowler gave you pertaining to the use of the land. In fact, I didn't really understand the quote very well, but surely the council hasn't looked for some kind of zoning to accommodate this many houses on 16 acres. There's 33 acres there, but they can only use 16 acres of it. And out of that, you've got to have streets, the amenities, sidewalks. The integrity of our neighborhood is why I'm here. And I think it's going to be destroyed. The traffic, you'll hear lots more about that. But about, I think, 15 years ago, I've been coming to these meetings for a long time. And the outcropping of the last one that Mickey Thompson had to do with, that's how long I've been coming to this, was that two of the residents, myself and Ron Isbell, would go to arbitration in Marietta along with this property owner to try to come to some conclusion as to what would be good use for the property that would benefit the city, the residents around it, and what we need here. And what came of that was we would support senior living facility, retirement home, or even a senior gated community. These are the things that we think would fit in that community. Or we certainly are not opposed, I'm not opposed, to the R2 zoning, which it now has. And that's the zoning that was there when this guy bought the property. He knew what he was buying. And he didn't do his homework on what could be done there. And it's fallen on the council and those of us living there to have to fight this thing over and over. And I'm tired of it, but I will continue to fight it because it doesn't fit. I had another thought. The idea of putting alleyways behind this, they already don't have enough room to build it. And how much more room would be taken up? They couldn't possibly put alleys in. I mean, that would kill the deal anyway for them. It's a great idea, but it won't fit here. So I would really appreciate your consideration on this. Consider those people who've been living there for a long time. Presently, there are 30 homes on Elizabeth Drive, Allison Court, Orchard Drive, and Rose Circle. That's about 60 acres. We're talking about putting 83 homes on 15 acres. It doesn't fit. So think about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blue. Mr. Adams, I believe you're up. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor,
Yeah,
City
good
Council.
evening.
My name is Mark Adams. I live at 6400 Elizabeth Drive, right down the street from the entrance to this proposed development. I appreciate the council and the mayor allowing us to speak, and I appreciate the developer, Mr. Parvey and Mr. Fowler bringing it to us. And while I feel like it is a quality development and it's
something that our community may actually be in need of. I won't double down on what Mr. Ballou has said, but I will make a couple of comments about my concerns. The gentleman right before us also mentioned something about traffic, but this development is dependent upon the neighborhood that exists there and has been there for many, many years, as Mr. Ballou mentioned, for an entrance. They've got to exit off of a major thoroughfare, being Hospital Drive or Campbellton Street, onto our two-lane, non-curbed street called Elizabeth Drive to get into their development. Now, they could go and try to get a curb cut, but I don't think that will work because of the proximity to I-20. They have tried to come in with another exit, at least out of the development for us, in order to try to relieve traffic off of that intersection. But we don't have any answers. In fact, it's already been discussed. Ms. Reed mentioned to us tonight that she doesn't really have any answers, and has already told me today we don't have any answers from the DOT as to who will be in control of the intersection. We don't know if our city will control and tell the developer what has to be done, if the county DOT will tell us what has to be done, or if the state will get involved. And I respect Mr. Fowler and the information he's provided to us about what the developer would hope to do, but if that's not required, I'm not sure that we'll see that. Backing up off of I-20 as you come home from Atlanta and you go north on Campbellton Street, we've got enough room for a turn lane of about 6 cars deep. Then you have a curb cut coming south on Campbellton to turn into the Presbyterian Church, or for many of us to do a U-turn when we don't like the way the traffic signal's working, okay? So having said that, I don't know how they're going to control traffic or not impact the surrounding area greatly with traffic coming off of I-20. So this is not just going to impact 30 homes. Yes, it's going to impact us if we have an entrance to another subdivision on our residential street, but it's also going to impact the other neighbors up and down Campbellton, some of which our city council actually live on Campbellton Street. So we need to be aware of that also. The density, I myself must admit that I was not aware, and I just left council in January, that this would be considered a medium density location with R5 zoning being applicable when all of the other homes that have been mentioned are on half-acre or larger lots. Some are on multiple acreage lots. I don't understand why we would want to come in and basically destroy the integrity of our neighborhood in order to benefit 82 lots. We've said all along, we realize it's going to be developed. We realize it's going to be, thankfully, hopefully, it'll be residentially developed. And we have said for many years, many years before I even came around, that we didn't want any development north of I-20 because you see it all over the community, all over the metro area. Once you start businesses and commercial development north of I-20, they'll end up right here at City Hall, and that's what we'll have. And I'm hoping that the integrity of our community can be protected and not be allowed. Based upon all these questions that have been asked with the previous item, knowing what little bit I know about development, I don't see how this application as drawn could go forward if it does not have the approval of the previous item. And I understand that the city council has tried to do that to benefit this particular item, and I appreciate that. But I don't see how it will work. Thereby, it would have to go back to the drawing board, it would seem to me, and therefore you would have less density if you are going to cause certain numbers of these, some percentage of these, to have rear entry. The lots are not wide enough, the houses are too wide, it won't work. I appreciate your time, and I trust that you all will do everything that you can to help us protect our community. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Mr. Nguyen, come on down. If you'll just give us your name and address one more time for the record, please.
Frank Nguyen, 8925 Orchard Drive, Douglasville 30134. And I feel like I've been a part of that community since 1955, even though I haven't lived there, but since 1997. I live on my grandparents' property. And so I've visited it all my life since 1953. That area, we talk about how it affects us, but really I think what Mr. Adams said was one of the most important things is it affects all of us. It affects the whole downtown area. Everything north of I-20 and west of Hospital Drive is affected by what they're talking about. And when I look at the traffic issue on the diagram that was up there, I can only imagine how it is going to be compounded with the problem that we have right now. I have briefly looked at Trayton Homes and believe them to be good developers. But that doesn't mean that we shoehorn in sardines and let this development go forward as an R5 instead of an R2. The traffic at that area, there are many problems, and I would need a whole lot more than 5 minutes to tell you the problems I see every day. But leaving Elizabeth is often a problem. Adding 3 lanes, I do disagree with what Mr. Fowler said. It is not going to be adding a lane that is then straight into Hospital Drive. The lane right now goes straight into Hospital Drive, and if I understood what he's proposing, the current lane that goes straight into Hospital Drive would turn left, and they're going to add, he said 3 more lanes. I don't know if he meant a total of 3 right lanes or add 3 more. If they add 3 more, then there's going to be 5.5 lanes there, none of which will go straight into Hospital Drive. They would go right into the pretty little downtown development right there, and you would have a lot of confusion as far as turning out there. You would also have a large volume. We're talking now about 30 homes in the area and increasing that 3-fold almost. And so the traffic is going to be 3-fold more every day going in and out of that area. To turn right at the exit that they've discussed seems completely unreasonable. There's no way I believe DOT would consider letting an exit be where I think that is located, and the city shouldn't, because it is right at the entrance ramp going on to I-20 West. And so if everybody in that subdivision just leaves that way, that's going to be a massive problem. I was late getting here today because the street was backed up from downtown all the way to Rose Circle. Well, let me rephrase that. Past Rose Circle. I couldn't see past Presley Mill where there was no car. And I actually went Hospital Drive to get here because of the traffic. And as the first gentleman spoke, every day it is like that when you leave anywhere around 4 to 6 o'clock range. You can have traffic backed up. And so if you're going to triple the traffic, you're going to create a massive problem. I haven't addressed, but I did speak with Ms. Miller and express my concerns about the septic issues and where the waste is going to go and the stormwater. So we have a promise to do what they're told to do. But no matter what is done, it's still going to be a massive problem for the city to have to deal with. I know the city services people, I know a lot of them, they're very good, but I also know that Greg Roberts has come to the Keep Douglasville Beautiful meetings and talked about the stress that they have right now. You can't triple the number of occupants in that area and not continue to stress those services. I don't see anything where the police department has addressed this. I don't see anything that addresses the city services and how they can accommodate it. I see statements in here that say, oh, it's no problem, no problem, no problem. And I see them, the answers to the questions are it's consistent. I agree it's consistent. It's also consistent to leave it R2, and that's what it should be.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nguyen. Did we have any other people in the audience that would like to speak either for or against this item this evening before we close this public hearing? Okay, with that being said, then I'm going to go ahead and close this public hearing. Now that we've heard from the applicant and the residents, council, did you guys have questions or comments? No? Okay. Well then, let me, I must say then, I agree with a lot of what I'm hearing tonight. I think it looks like a good project. It really does. But I can also say that as a, 20-whatever year resident of downtown Douglasville, and now just over 10 years on Campbellton Street, 2 times today, just pulling out of my driveway, trying to go left, I had to go right to turn down Cornelia and loop back around because it is impossible to turn left on Campbellton Street sometimes. And this is supposed to be the easy time because this is when school's out, so there's a little bit less traffic on our roads. So I must say, after everything that we're hearing, traffic is one thing that is really weighing on my heart because I'm just not sure that this will remedy our traffic issues. And Mr. Fowler, with all due respect, I don't think we agree on what medium density is, but we can talk about that later. Council, if you guys had nothing else to say about this, guys, I'm going to go ahead and move along to the next item, and we can bring this up again on Monday. Can't believe y'all are so quiet tonight. I think people are getting sleepy. Next item is item 24-200. That is to hold a public hearing and consider a request for a variance from section 8.01 of the Unified Development Ordinance to reduce the required parking spaces from 236 to 167 parking spaces on a land lot of 17.9 acres at 7701 Staples Drive and land lot 714, District 18, Section 2, parcel ID 07141820001. Application by LBA Realty in care of Dillard Sellers, and it looks like Ms. Shayla Reed is going to go over this item with us.
Yes, thank you. As mentioned, this is a variance to reduce parking for this particular location. It is located within Ward 5 along Staples Drive. It's primarily within either PRD or light industrial within this particular area. The applicant is requesting to reduce its parking count, and that is for the purpose of reducing the impervious surface that is located there. They're saying that they believe that the tenant that they may have would not need as many parking spaces. I can say that they do not have a tenant at this time. This is a build-to-suit, so it's one that they're building and the tenant will come later. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Thank you. Looks like the applicant, you want to come down and go over this with us? Thank you, guys. If you'll just give us your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor and council members.
Good evening.
My name's Baxter Russell. I'm a zoning and land use attorney with Dillard Sellers in Atlanta, Georgia, 1776 Peachtree Street, Atlanta, Georgia. It's my honor tonight to be here in front of you on behalf of this applicant, LBA Realty. Joining me tonight, we have Mr. Will Scott with LBA Realty, as well as Mr. Danny Mitchell with Paulson Mitchell. So we're here to answer any questions that you may have before Monday evening. We're here requesting your approval of our parking variance request so that we may move forward with a new proposed logistics center and warehouse on Staples Drive there at Lynch as well. I know we've heard about some movies being filmed, so I just want to do some scene setting before we jump into this. That's a terrible joke, but thank you. Before we jump into the specifics of our project, I think it'll be helpful to relate it to a project that I was actually here working on with many of you back in 2021. So on the screen, and for those watching or in front of you now, the property that we're talking about tonight and that we're just requesting a parking variance for is where the yellow circle is. It's currently a vacant site. Back in 2021, I was here before you on behalf of the same client for a new warehouse proposal at the corner of Mount Vernon Road and Lynch there. You can see, obviously, that Google Maps is not up to date because the building is now finished. and we're going through the process of finding a tenant for that building currently. So we are proposing a new building just next to that site. It's actually part of the Staples Distribution Center property. So the Staples Distribution site is about 66 acres. When that building was developed, my clients did not develop that building. They purchased it in about 2018. But when that building was developed, there was a large remnant property that was purposely left set aside at the rear of that Staples building to allow eventually for another building to come along and be developed. That's what we're seeking to do now. The reason that we're able to do that, unlike last time when I was before you, is the property that we're talking about discussing is already zoned light industrial. So we're currently permitted under the existing use regulations to develop a new warehouse building, unlike before when I needed to come before you and request the use approval at that time. So talking specifically about the request now, this is a partial survey. I say partial because the survey for this property, it's a very wide property that runs down along, but this is the main portion of the site. You can see on the left-hand side our track that if we move forward with this development and receive this parking variance, we will subdivide off to then develop the new warehouse building. You can see the existing Staples site there now on the survey. This is our current proposed site plan, and the reason that we are here requesting the variance before you. As I believe has been mentioned before in this meeting, the current regulations for a use such as ours is 1 parking space per 1,000 square feet. So for this site, we would be required to have 236 spaces. Our request is to have 167 spaces, a reduction of about 70 spaces. So we would take that parking ratio of 1 per 1,000 down to 0.71 per 1,000. The space that we got approved next door for rezoning, we also got approved for a parking variance at that time for 0.66. So it's pretty much the same ratio. It's a little bit larger here on this new site, but within the same realm. The reason that we're, as Director Reed mentioned, the reason that we're proposing this parking variance, not because of there are space limitations on the site, but I think a primary reason would be that modern warehouses and logistics spaces just don't require as much parking as is required by code, the 1 space per 1,000. You can see in the materials that we presented with our application, we've provided a parking survey summary of other warehouse spaces in the Douglasville I-20 corridor. And you can see from that material that the parking ratios on similar buildings range from 0.45 to 0.76. So we're right within that range at 0.71. Additionally, something just to consider is that we're talking about passenger vehicles. So you don't have to take into account the truck or loading spaces. We're providing 54 separate loading spaces for the eventual end user at this property. The parking reduction that we're just talking about is just the passenger vehicles, which would be for visitors or the employees, obviously. 2 more consideration, or really kind of 1 more consideration for you that ties together. What this request really allows us to do is to reduce the impact on the property. By not having as many parking spaces, we don't have to pave as much of the land, have as much of the green space covered up by asphalt, allows us to have just less lot coverage. I think in closing, again, I want to say thank you to staff for working with us on this application, helping us get it going and get it moving as we seek to get this developed. I also want to provide an update on the previous building that I've referenced. We communicated with the neighbors that were in the county there. I have reached out to them to communicate about just this variance request. I did get a response back from our primary contact there who appreciated the outreach, but I didn't hear any specific concerns about what we're proposing to do just with the variance. So again, I'll just close by saying thank you and reiterate our request that you approve our parking variance. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Council, before I open the public hearing, did you guys have any questions or comments of the applicant? Coach?
No, well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Who?
I came, Councilman Estes had his hand up.
Councilman Estes, did you have something to say, dear? Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Russell. That was a good summary of your proposal. I just have a couple of comments. First of all, obviously with this being a spec build, you'd kind of be shooting yourself in the foot if you were undercutting future needs for the project. So that makes no sense. But what I really like about the reduction is the environmental impact by having a good bit lower impervious surface. You know, that helps everybody. This is already zoned correctly. It's already an industrial area. I'm good with it.
Thank you, Councilman Estes. Coach, did you have something to add to that?
Well, Councilman Estes pretty much said what I was going to say. I'm pretty much in agreement with paving just what we need and not any more. I mean, we've got a lot of places where there's a lot of pavement that's not necessary, so I don't mind the reduction of that, but it's my understanding y'all don't really have a tenant yet, so what if on the off chance the tenant that comes forward is going to need the spaces that were originally part of it?
Yeah, I think that with LBA's experience building sites like this, such as next door, but I know I've talked about next door a lot, but they build a lot of industrial buildings like this. And so they have experience building these spec buildings to be able to say that if we provide enough parking within this range, that the tenants that we're seeking, it'll be satisfactory for their parking. So it's based on experience.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate that.
Madam Chair, that's all I had.
Okay, thank you, Coach. Mayor Pro Tem, you got something?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my eyes are failing me. Y'all are gonna have to start like, doing something. Yes,
over there.
that'll work.
I want to repeat the comment I made earlier about the other development, is to consider I appreciate Councilman Estes mentioned about your environmental approach or consideration in creating fewer parking spaces, less impervious surface. Also, to look at the roof and what type of roof membrane you're going to use. These white EPDMs are nasty and causing heat island effect in a lot of places, and you've got a lot of other warehouses in that area. So if you can take that into consideration when you choose your roofing materials, that would be wise consideration.
Yeah, I made a note of that when I heard your comment previously, because I thought you might ask the same question.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Or make the same comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else? No. With that being said, guys, this is a public hearing, so I'm going to go ahead and open the floor. If we have anyone here who would like to speak for or against this item, now is your chance. Okay, with that being said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing if no one is here to speak on that item. And let's go ahead and close this item, and we will take it up on Monday. Thank you guys very much. Thanks for y'all's patience. One more item. This is item number 24-205, and this item is to reappoint Mr. Francisco Artley to serve as the Ward 4 member of the Douglasville Planning Commission to serve a 5-year term expiring July 1st, 2029, and Ms. Shayla Reed is going to go over this item with us.
Thank you. So Mr. Artley has asked to serve again for another term. This would be his last chance or opportunity to serve, considering the 10-year limit that we have, or the 2-term limit that we have. He's asking to have an additional 5 years, basically having the current 5 years to make it to 10, sorry. No one else has asked to have this role, so that we're asking for your permission to allow for him to be reappointed.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Council, did you guys have any questions of Ms. Reed regarding this item? And I know, are y'all gonna be sad, do you wanna just have one more public hearing just to do it? I'm kidding, no. All right, guys, like, I think that we can, yeah, we can do that too. I think we can all agree that Mr. Artley is doing a wonderful job. Are you guys okay with placing this on the consent agenda?
Looks like a yes.
All right, thank you so much. Madam Mayor, that is all that we have this evening for planning and development.
You did a wonderful job, Madam Chair. Thank you for the patience of the audience and for the citizens that have come out and expressed your concerns about some of the planning and development items that we had. We'll move on then to the next committee, which is also chaired by Councilmember Nicole Miller, Public Improvement and Beautification Committee.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no business this evening for public improvement and beautification.
Thank you, ma'am. Public Relations Committee, chaired by Councilmember Samuel Davis.
No business at this time, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Davis. Public Safety, chaired by Councilmember Dr. LaShawn Burdanley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no business tonight.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Recreation, Culture, and Tourism Committee, chaired by Councilmember Chris Watts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no business tonight in Recreation, Culture, and Tourism.
Thank you so much, Coach. Technology Committee, chaired by Councilmember Elena Hudson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no business under the Technology Committee this evening.
Thank you, ma'am. Transportation Committee, chaired by Councilmember Dr. LaShawn Burdanley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No business tonight.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other business to come before council tonight from the elected officials? Yes, sir. Councilman Estes.
Just a quick comment, Madam Mayor.
Yes, sir.
We had the Ward 5 Town Hall the other night.
How did it go?
It was great. We had a good turnout, and I just
Good.
wanted to thank staff again for turning up and doing an amazing job. They faced a bunch of questions and comments and handled them all beautifully,
Good.
and it was wonderful.
Well, good. Thank you and congratulations on your town hall. I know that Ward 2, Ward 5, Ward 1, all right, so Ward 3. So we're missing. And Coach, you had yours before. Yes, sir. You had something?
When he was done.
Oh, are you done, Councilman Estes? We didn't want to interrupt you. Are you finished, sir? That's all you had? Okay, thank you. Councilmember Watts.
Madam Mayor, I wanted to bring up something we had discussed earlier in committees tonight, just real quick. This is not the time to get into extended discussion, but we never did talk about when folks come forward that want to rent our facility, including the town green, who pays for staff. We didn't really get into that.
Yeah.
But that's something that going forward, we're going to need to have worked out with our rules and policies.
Yes, sir. I think Ms. Rosado is bringing to our next round of meetings the document for us to look over to approve that we're saying we were not going to have it approved before July 1st. But that is one of the concessions that I said this evening, is that if we aren't able to provide services, that we might need to look at a provision to have the applicant or persons who want to rent pay for additional staff and a professional company for security and/or staff
I
services.
mean, it's my understanding that's the way it is right now. But we didn't really get into that part of the discussion tonight. I did not bring it up. That's my fault, but probably should have been discussed ahead of time. And going forward, we need to talk about it a little bit more, I think.
Yes, sir, we can do that, and I think some of the lessons learned with the Town Green are that the Town Green is attracting a much larger crowd than O'Neill Plaza. I mean, typically with O'Neill Plaza, most events we can handle, with the exception of probably Taste of Douglasville or Chili Cook-Off, we are able to handle with very minimal staff, so it hasn't ever necessarily been a real cost burden to us. Just purely based on location, size, and how we have to manage the event. The Town Green is something that we're going to have to look to include. Even our overtime hours for Wednesday Wind Down this season are different than what they were in previous seasons. A lot of that has to do with road closures because we're having to manage how people park. So, and it's just getting residents used to the fact that Douglasville's growing up, so we've moved from 1 red light to 2. So you might have to walk a block or 2. And it really is the growing pains of development. I think individuals are used to parking where they can see their car. But if you're going to enjoy the activities of the Town Green, you might have to park in the parking deck, which is usually available and open, and you just have to walk a couple blocks. So some of that, we will work toward educating our residents more and more about the availability of parking and that you won't just be able to park on site. The other, as you mentioned, Councilman Watts, is that when we bring final draft policies and procedures, we will look to include what it costs for overtime. An example is when we have, for instance, the CAC's contract, Taste of Douglasville and Chili Cook-Off, the cost of staff is built into that agreement. So we will do the same for anyone who's renting our facility. So it's, as much as it's challenging, the growing pains is a good problem to have. I was just sharing with the mayor earlier today. 20 years ago, we probably didn't see 5,000 people downtown in a month. Now we see probably 5,000 people downtown in a week, just on a regular basis. So that's a good thing that we have.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, City Manager. Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
And something to consider, I mean, I don't believe we have any staff at the moment dedicated to the town green, correct? We pull in people from different, whether it's the convention center and so forth, or park staff. I mean, there's something that we may want to be considering. I mean, we have a full-time staff that operates the conference center. We may be getting busy enough to consider that as a budget item to have somebody who manages the town green.
So we actually, in some ways, since do, right? So part of when we have special events, that's Samantha's role. So Samantha is the Assistant Director for the Convention and Visitors Bureau. She deals with the town green. Jennifer deals with the conference center. As far as on a regular basis, that's handled by Chris Bass and his staff. We don't have any issue managing with the staff that we have. Our issue really is that lead time. I mean, what made things complicated with this event is that, we kind of had 2 weeks, and when you're trying to coordinate everybody at the city, 2 weeks is just not enough because, again, our police department that's patrolling, right now, one of the things I was going to announce to you all, I-20 is shut down for a chemical spill. If we had an event down here on Town Green, folks got to go. We got to deal with I-20. So I don't think that it's cost effective for us to have a team of people just dedicated for the Town Green. I think we just have to be cognizant of the fact that our main priority is safety. And so when safety calls, some of the fun things kind of take the backside. So we just kind of have to manage that. And so when we're asking our citizens to work with us, just be in, consideration of that. Same way with the guys and girls that are picking up trash out on the Town Green. They're the same ones that are going to be on your curb picking up your trash can on your trash day. They're not different. They're the same folks.
Yeah. So I guess we can talk about it too when we have our planning session at the top of the year, that maybe just for special times or the series, for the concert series, that we contract with the company if that's something we want to do. I know it's a fee, but it would alleviate or relieve some of the stress from staff to do these special events.
The only thing I would caution you all on is there is something to be said about controlling your own staff. The reason that your events, your 6 concerts that you've had are smooth is because they're our folks. I can't control what a contract company, they're going to send in whomever is available that day, and you're going to lose the continuity and you're going to lose the ability of control and professionalism that we have. Our police department, as much as we kind of augment that security, those folks are in constant contact with our police department, but the main key people, that's our police department. We don't want to relinquish that control to a contractor. It just never gives the same level of control and professionalism that we can guarantee you all that you're going to have a successful event. So the cost the overtime cost, it's just going to be the cost of operations, and it's probably going to be far less than if we contracted with a vendor, because those security vendors and those contractors are not inexpensive. And I don't necessarily know if it's going to be just going to be cost beneficial. If we know and we plan ahead, those events that we have that come along will be just as successful as all of your concerts. All of it has to do with planning and being prepared.
Okay. Thank you, City Manager. Any other comments? Coach, you have something?
I'm sorry to belabor this, but we've still got 6 months left in this year. All of it's going to be on the new fiscal year. And so some of these questions we're talking about tonight, who pays for what, we're going to have to work that out pretty soon.
Yeah, this weekend is us. So you all are going to be covering the cost for this weekend. We are going to have to make some adjustments internally that we'll be bringing to you all at the first budget amendment. But part of what we do for those rental agreements and contracts are going to have to include the cost of labor.
Thank you. Any other comments? Coach, or on my left, on my right? Any comments, council members? No, I did want to, and I brought this to the city manager's attention, not trying to belabor the hour as well, but in relations to the town green, that I went there Sunday after church and brunch and all of that, and there were kids on the stage, and we've been talking about that the entire time. So maybe we can look at something, a rope or just something, because it makes me really nervous with the water, the splashing of the water, and then having kids on the stage. I don't want anyone to fall. It's concrete on the bottom of that stage if you fall off, and they're not listening or not paying attention to the sign that says authorized personnel only. Yeah, parents need to do it. But my husband said, just stay off the stage. You're putting, if you say don't get on the stage, maybe they'll look at that. But just like maybe, I don't know, I think a deterrent, a rope will be a deterrent or something. I don't know. But again, they're on the stage and it's water and they're jumping around and playing. It's like, whew. So anyway, we'll talk about that later. But I just want to put that in our brains about maybe the safety aspect. Okay, so if we don't have any other business, we'll move to updates from city staff. Our city attorney, Mr. Joel Dotson.
No business, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Colonel Dotson. Our staff attorney, Ms. Miranda Jordan.
No business, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Our police department, Captain Edwards.
No business, Madam Mayor.
Thank you so much, sir. Our city manager, I know you want to talk to us about the spill.
That's all I have as of now, unless Captain Edwards has anything else, or Ms. Burdette has anything. I know that we were working the accident as of now.
I'm sorry, as far as what?
I-20. So I-20 is closed from Chapel Hill to Highway 5 due to the spill. So if you all are going out, so I don't have any further information than that unless the other two staff people do. That's all I have.
Thank you. And city manager, some information was sent out about the unfortunate fire that we had at Douglasville Proper Apartments. And if we don't pay attention and kind of help with the GoFundMe and provide clothes and whatever else was presented so that we can help those families.
Yes, ma'am. Final report from Chief Allen were 4 injuries. They were sent to either Grady or Grady, Cobb, or Douglas General. Building 3 as part of the development at Douglasville Proper is a total loss. Due to the age of the building, they did not meet the same current standards of today. Those standards were grandfathered in. So, but thankfully, outside of property, there was no loss of life.
And they were one of the applicants for DCA in the point system. And so I passed that information on to city manager last council meeting. I'm not sure how that will even affect their application, if they will be granted anything, because it would be a total loss for their property. But
Yeah, there's several inspections that have to go on. So I don't, as far as the application round, I think they'll
Put a
be
halt.
dealing with fire inspections for over the next couple months.
All right. Thank you so much, City Manager. Now we've come to the opportunity for comments from citizens and delegates. If you sustain the meeting and you'd like to speak to us, please come forward and give us your name and address, and you have 5 minutes to talk to us about any business germane to the city of Douglasville. Mr. Schaefer, you're not going to talk to us? You don't have your bagpipes with your kilt on? No? Okay. We have any other business from citizens or anyone else? If not, we don't have any other else to come before council tonight. This meeting is adjourned.